Everyone wants to be rich, but almost no one is taught how to become rich. Not in a way that lasts, not in a way that builds freedom instead of pressure, not in a way that honors peace over performance. Most people chase money like it's a finish line, but money isn't the destination. It's the result of habits, of choices, of discipline, repeated quietly, daily, without applause. The Stoics never talked about getting rich. They talked about becoming strong, becoming clear, disciplined to delay the now for the sake of the later. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." If you are mastered by your appetites, your moods, your environment, you are not free. And if you are not free, you are not wealthy, even if your bank account says otherwise. Start small. Wake up 30 minutes earlier. Make your bed. Cook instead of ordering out. Wait 24 hours before making a non-essential purchase. Track every cent for 30 days. Learn to sit with the discomfort of not indulging and watch how strong you become. Discipline is a habit. It is not something you are born with. It is something you build. And the man who builds it slowly, daily, silently, becomes unbreakable. This is not about austerity. It is about authority over your mind, over your time, over your money. Because true wealth is not just having more. It's needing less. It's knowing what is enough and being strong enough to stop chasing what isn't. So before you seek financial strategies, before you chase external success, cultivate discipline, because until you do, wealth will not build you. It will break you. Part 2. Track every dollar. Awareness is ownership. You cannot build wealth if you are blind to where your money goes. You cannot improve what you do not measure, and you cannot master your life if you avoid its numbers. This is not about spreadsheets. This is not about being obsessed with accounting or pinching every penny until it bleeds. This is about becoming the kind of person who sees clearly, because clarity is power. And when it comes to wealth, awareness is ownership. The Stoics taught us to know ourselves, not in theory, but in practice, not just in values, but in behaviors, not just in dreams, but in details. And if your money is leaking, if your finances are scattered, if you don't know what you spent last week, you are not in control. You are floating, reacting, guessing. That is not Stoic. That is passive. Seneca wrote, "Wealth is the slave of a wise man, the master of a fool." And who is the fool? The one who earns much and loses more. The one who thinks money is magic instead of math. The one who says, "I think I'm doing fine," while drowning in invisible spending. Wealth doesn't disappear in disasters. It dissolves in the small, quiet, daily choices we don't track. The coffee here, the delivery there, the subscription you forgot you had, the app you thought was only $9.99, but added up to hundreds in a year. These are not crimes, but they are patterns, and unexamined patterns always lead to stagnation, or worse, regret. So what does the Stoic do? He watches, he tracks, he becomes a quiet student of his own habits, not to punish himself, but to know himself. Because only when you know, truly know, how money flows through your life, can you begin to direct it. Until then, you are not the master, you are the servant, you are the one being ruled by whim, by mood, by convenience, by cultural programming that says, "Don't worry, just tap." But the Stoic worries, not from fear, from care, from self-respect. Track every dollar, every single one, from the smallest coin to the largest payment. Know what it was for. Know how you felt when you spent it. Know whether it moved you forward or just kept you distracted. This habit alone will transform you. It will slow you down. It will force you to think. It will change the way you spend, not by force, but by insight. You will start to ask, do I really need this? What's the purpose behind this purchase? Is this serving the life I'm trying to build, or just sedating the one I haven't yet changed? Marcus Aurelius reminded himself constantly. Ask yourself at every moment, is this necessary? That is not just about time. It's about money. It's about attention. It's about life. When you begin to track your money, you begin to track your mind. You see where your energy goes. You see your fears, your desires, your impulses. Money reveals you. And when you become aware, really aware, you take ownership. You stop blaming the economy. You stop blaming your job. You stop blaming your parents, your partner, your past. You start taking responsibility for what's in your hands. And that is when wealth begins. Because wealth does not start with a raise. It starts with recognition of what you have, of what you waste, of what you truly value. Becoming someone who doesn't need more to do more. Someone who doesn't depend on circumstances to build character. And that mindset is the foundation of all real wealth. So if you're tired of living paycheck to paycheck, if you're done pretending, performing, and hoping wealth will magically show up, if you're ready to build something that can't be taken from you, then this is for you. Not a hack, not a trend, not empty hype, just 10 Stoic habits, timeless, quiet, relentless. So what can you do today? Open your bank statements, print them, highlight them, log your spending for the past 30 days. No shame, no editing. Just see it, then break it down. Needs, wants, noise. This exercise alone, done with honesty, will show you more than 100 hours of financial advice ever will. Track your money daily. Make it part of your morning or evening ritual, even for 5 minutes. Let it become a moment of reflection, not judgment. Ask, what does this spending say about me? What does it say I care about? Do I like that answer? The Stoic does not wait to feel in control. He acts into clarity. He faces the facts, and then lives with intention. Remember, what you track, you control. What you ignore controls you. So start watching, start owning, start leading. Because until you track every dollar, wealth will remain a mystery. But once you do, it becomes a path. Part 3. Spend less than you earn. Freedom begins with the surplus. The principle is simple. So simple, in fact, that most people ignore it. Not because it's hard, but because it's humbling. Spend less than you earn. That's it. A sentence. A commandment. A habit that separates those who build wealth from those who live trapped by appearance and impulse. But simplicity does not mean insignificance. In fact, the simplest truths are often the most ignored and the most life-changing. The Stoics would look at our modern world and be stunned by one thing above all. How many people voluntarily chain themselves, not by the state, not by enemies, but by their own spending, by buying what they don't need, with money they don't have, to impress people they don't respect. Seneca wrote, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." Read that again. It's not about how much you make, it's about how little you need. Because the man who needs less owns more of himself. And that is the essence of Stoic wealth. Self-ownership. Here's the truth. It doesn't matter how big your income is if your lifestyle grows to meet or exceed it. That's not success. That's just a more expensive form of slavery. You've upgraded your apartment, your wardrobe, your meals, but you haven't upgraded your freedom. You're still waiting for the next paycheck to survive. You're still anxious, still reactive, still tethered to external conditions. But the Stoic knows. Freedom begins where spending ends. Not in the denial of all pleasure, but in the disciplined separation between want and need. So what does spending less than you earn actually look like in practice? First, it means living with intention. Every dollar you spend is a decision. a declaration, a commitment to a path, or a drift further from it. Ask before every purchase, is this essential? Is this aligned with who I want to become? Is this solving a real problem or feeding an invisible insecurity most people spend to escape, to feel good, to feel seen, to numb the ache of dissatisfaction? But Stoics do not numb. They face discomfort directly. They embrace simplicity as a strength. They do not fear minimalism. They honor it as a sharpening of the soul. Next, it means creating a buffer, a surplus. Money left over is not just safety. It is power. It is margin. It is breathing room in a world that wants you suffocated by monthly obligations. And what happens when you consistently live below your means? You're no longer reactive. You stop chasing. You can walk away from jobs that break your values. You can say no to people who try to buy your time. You can invest in your future, in your learning, in your freedom. This is not about becoming a monk. It's about becoming unshakable. Because the man who spends less than he earns builds a foundation, slowly, quietly, consistently, that cannot be taken from him by a dip in the market or a bad month at work. He builds wealth, like the Stoic builds virtue, brick by brick, choice by choice, with patience, with precision, with principle. And here's the paradox. The less you need, the more abundance you feel, because you are no longer defined by your possessions. You are no longer owned by what you own. You are no longer seduced by what everyone else says is worth it. The world wants you to consume, because consumption keeps you small, dependent, distracted. But the Stoic refuses. He does not live beneath his means to be praised. He does it to be free, free to think, free to choose, free to walk a path that is aligned with purpose, not pressure. So what can you do today? Set a spending cap and stick to it. Automate your savings the moment income arrives. Habits that will make you start building wealth, not someday, but today. Let's begin. Part 1. Master the habit of self-discipline. Wealth begins where impulse ends. Before you can talk about money, you must talk about mastery, not mastery over markets, not mastery over investment strategies, but mastery over yourself. Because without self-discipline, all wealth slips through your hands. Track lifestyle creep, the silent inflation that ruins long-term goals. Cut one thing this week you won't miss next week. Make your surplus visible, and let it become your new peace. Because true wealth doesn't come from what you earn. It comes from what you keep. And what you keep becomes what you build with. And what you build becomes who you become. So if you want to live freely, start here. Spend less. Want less. Own more of your life. Not someday. Not when you make more. Now. Part 4. Delay gratification. The discipline that builds empires. If there is one habit that separates the ordinary from the extraordinary, one principle that creates an unbreakable foundation for wealth, character, and freedom, it is this: the ability to delay gratification, to see something you want, feel the pull toward it, feel the desire to have it now, and yet, wait, not out of fear, not out of guilt, but out of principle. This single habit is the silent force behind every lasting fortune, every enduring relationship, every man or woman who has risen beyond average, and it is deeply Stoic. The Stoics were masters of self-restraint, not because they didn't want comfort, but because they knew comfort, when pursued without discipline, becomes a cage. Seneca once said, "It is not because things are difficult that we do not dare. It is because we do not dare that they are difficult." The same could be said of self-control. It is not that delaying gratification is impossible. It is that we are rarely taught how, and rarely required to try. Our culture does not reward patience. It sells speed. It worships now. One-click purchases, same-day delivery, instant streaming, swipe, tap, scroll, consume. Everything is designed to bypass reflection and feed impulse. But here's the truth. Wealth, real wealth, is always slow. It is always the result of choosing later over now, of saying no today so you can say yes to something bigger tomorrow. The Stoic doesn't just delay gratification, he finds power in it, because he knows that the longer he can wait, the more options he earns, the more time he gives compound interest to work, the more space he creates between stimulus and response, the more energy he redirects from consumption to creation. Think of the opposite of wealth. It is not poverty, it is impulsiveness. A man who cannot wait for savings to grow, for investments to mature, for peace to deepen, will never have control over his financial life, because he is constantly reacting, chasing pleasure, chasing validation, chasing status. But the Stoic chases none of these. He is a long-term player in a short-term world. He understands that every moment of resistance is a muscle being trained, and every time he waits, not out of weakness, but wisdom, he sharpens that muscle. So how do you begin to build this habit? Start small. See something you want. Wait 24 hours. Next time, wait 3 days, then a week. In that gap, observe yourself. Is the desire still there? Was it real or reactive? Did you want it for joy or to numb something else? This practice alone will save you thousands, not just in money, but in regret. Then apply this to other areas of life. Delay the angry response. Delay the gossip. Delay the treat yourself excuse. Delay the quick fix. Each act of restraint is an investment, not just financially, but philosophically. It says, I am not ruled by impulse. I choose from clarity. That is rare, and that is powerful, because the longer you can delay gratification, the more you can save, the more you can invest, the more you can build with intention. This is not about deprivation. It's about deliberation. It's about refusing to trade your future for a fleeting feeling. Epictetus taught, freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. And what lies within your control, always, is the pause, the space between want and act, the ability to say, not yet. And in that pause, you find yourself again. The man who can delay gratification becomes wealthy, not just in money, but in mind. Because he does not live in reaction, he lives in command. And from that command, empires are built, not loudly, not suddenly, but brick by brick, decision by decision, sacrifice by sacrifice. So if you want to become wealthy, learn to wait, not with bitterness, with calm, with focus, with fire under control. Because when you can wait, you can choose. And when you can choose, you are free. Part 5. Automate and systemize. Build wealth without relying on willpower. One of the greatest myths of success is that it depends on constant willpower. Like water poured into a broken vessel, no amount of income, opportunity, or knowledge will stay if the character that holds it is weak. The Stoics understood this. Seneca, one of the wealthiest men in Rome, and also one of its most disciplined, warned that riches mean nothing to a man who has not mastered himself. He said, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more. That is poor." That the path to wealth is a daily battle of discipline versus temptation, focus versus distraction, action versus laziness. But willpower, like energy, is finite. It fluctuates. It fades. And if your entire wealth-building process depends on it, you are building on sand. The Stoics, though deeply committed to discipline, understood this truth. Consistency matters more than intensity. What you do daily, without decision, shapes who you are. And the wisest men do not rely on motivation, they rely on systems. Marcus Aurelius didn't hope to be good each day, he prepared for it. Epictetus didn't leave virtue to chance, he trained for it. Seneca didn't wait for favorable conditions, he created internal routines to weather unfavorable ones. So if you want to build wealth the Stoic way, you must remove your dependence on mood. You must make doing the right thing easier than doing the wrong thing. You must automate and systemize. Why? Because automation is not laziness. It is strategic discipline. Think of the modern world. We automate bill payments so we don't forget. We automate GPS directions so we don't get lost. We automate reminders so we show up on time. So why not automate the most important decisions of your financial life? Here's the reality. Every time you must decide whether to save, whether to invest, whether to resist spending, you are using cognitive energy. And the more decisions you make in a day, the more fatigued you become. Eventually you'll slip. You'll say, just this once. You'll justify the indulgence. You'll skip the contribution. You'll delay the action. But a system, it doesn't ask for your permission. It doesn't check your mood. It executes. Automatic transfers to savings. Automatic investments into index funds. Automatic debt repayments. Automatic budgeting updates. These are not just financial tools. They are Stoic armor. They shield your intentions from your impulses. They allow your future self to benefit from your present clarity, even when your future self is tired, stressed, or distracted. And this is where the Stoic mindset shines. We don't wait for the perfect mood. We build structures that guide us, even in imperfect moods. Ask yourself, is your savings habit dependent on how you feel this month? Is your budget subject to your willpower at the checkout counter? Is your financial growth hinged on you remembering to invest? If so, you are setting yourself up for inconsistency. But when you automate, you create a quiet engine in the background of your life, one that keeps working, one that keeps building, one that keeps pushing you forward, silently, relentlessly, without needing your daily attention. And what about systemizing? Automation is about removing decisions. Systemization is about repeating success. The Stoic doesn't just act, he reflects. He examines what works, and then he builds a repeatable method around it. He notices that when he prepares his meals, he spends less, that when he journals his spending weekly, he becomes more intentional, that when he reads 10 pages on investing each morning, his mindset shifts. So what does he do? He turns it into a system. He makes it part of his day, not when he feels like it, always. This is how legacies are built, not through scattered inspiration, but through steady iteration. You may not control your income today, but you can control your system. You can automate your savings. You can schedule 1 hour each week to review your numbers. You can set a fixed percentage to invest and never touch it. You can turn learning into a ritual. You can turn financial decisions into habits, not debates. This doesn't eliminate discipline, it protects it. It allows your limited willpower to be used on deeper choices, not on remembering to click transfer. Seneca would say, "A man who suffers before it is necessary suffers more than necessary, and a man who decides every financial action daily is suffering more than necessary." So simplify, automate, systemize, not because you are lazy, but because you are strategic. The Stoic way is not about doing everything manually. It is about creating a life so well designed that virtue flows naturally, so that when hardship comes, and it will, you are already sustained by habits that require no extra effort. Remember, wealth is not about brilliance. It's about structure. It's about repetition. It's about consistency without friction. So build systems that outlast your moods. Build automations that protect your future. And this is the paradox of wealth. If you cannot control your desires, you will always be poor, no matter how much you earn. Self-discipline is not glamorous. It is not loud. It is not praised. But it is the foundation upon which all wealth is built, because wealth is not simply the result of making money. It is the result of knowing when not to spend it, when not to seek external validation, when not to chase the next thrill. The man who masters discipline masters energy. He masters time. Build a financial life that doesn't depend on how motivated you feel, only on how well you've designed it. And in that design, you will find freedom. Part 6. Learn to say no, protecting your future by guarding your present. If wealth were only about how much you say yes to, then everyone would be rich by now. But the truth is harder and more powerful. Your wealth depends on what you're willing to say no to. No to unnecessary spending. No to distractions disguised as opportunities. No to people who drain your energy and sabotage your focus. No to the comforts that feel good now but cost you long-term growth. The Stoics were not rich because they hoarded gold. They were rich because they hoarded clarity. They didn't chase every desire, every impulse, every invitation. They measured life, not by how much they could consume, but by how much they could resist. Epictetus said, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. And the fewer wants you have, the easier it becomes to say no, without guilt, without apology, and without regret, because every yes you say to one thing is a silent no to something else. Say yes to the fancy dinner. You say no to your savings goal. Say yes to the 5th subscription. You say no to long-term investment. Say yes to pleasing everyone. You say no to your own time and sanity." So, the habit you must build, if you are serious about creating wealth and living freely, is the habit of guarding your time, your attention, your money, your energy like sacred territory. Because it is. You just haven't been acting like it. The modern world is designed to tempt you, constantly. It thrives when your boundaries are soft, your purpose is blurry, and your inner compass is asleep. That's why they market lifestyle over discipline. That's why they make convenience feel virtuous. That's why treat yourself has become a moral code. But the Stoic doesn't treat life as entertainment. He treats it as preparation. He knows that saying no isn't rejection, it's alignment. It's the quiet art of protecting what matters from what doesn't. And this isn't about becoming rigid or joyless. It's about becoming free. The kind of freedom that doesn't depend on explaining your choices to others. Learn to say no to lifestyle inflation just because you got a raise, to mindless shopping just because you're bored, to urgent meetings just because they show up on your calendar, to fake friendships just because you're scared of being alone, to the fear of missing out just because everyone else is doing it. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself often, ask yourself at every moment, is this necessary? That's not just philosophy, that's a budget, that's a calendar, that's a mental firewall against the endless current of distractions. The man who masters no is not cruel. He's committed to his vision, to his freedom, to his values. He is not swayed by every invitation or impulse. He does not jump just because something is shiny. He does not chase every maybe at the cost of his musts. And how do you build this habit? You start by sitting still, by practicing discomfort, by noticing your reflex to say yes too quickly, and pausing, just a pause, one breath, one question. Does this serve who I want to become? Say no with respect, with silence, with no explanation. You don't owe anyone access to your life just because they asked nicely. You don't owe your money to trends. You don't owe your energy to people who have not earned it. Saying no will feel hard at first because you've been taught to fear disapproval. But the Stoic knows a no to the world can be a yes to the self, a yes to freedom, to legacy, to peace. And over time, you'll notice something incredible. The more you say no, the more you have. More time, more clarity, more margin, more money, more room to say yes to what actually matters. Because wealth isn't just built by smart investments, it's built by courageous boundaries. So the next time something tempts you, ask yourself, is this a seed I want to plant, or a weed I'll later have to pull? If it's a weed, say no and keep walking. Because every no to the wrong thing is a yes to your future. Part 7. Invest in wisdom. Grow rich in what truly pays forever. Most people believe that wealth is built by chasing money, by focusing entirely on income, side hustles, assets, returns. And while those things matter, they are all secondary, because the primary asset, the one that compounds for life, that no one can take, tax, or devalue, is wisdom. To build real wealth, you must first invest in what lasts longer than money. He masters emotion, and in mastering these, he masters wealth. Let's make this practical. You want to build wealth? Start with your mornings. How you begin your day is a declaration of who you serve, comfort or purpose. Do you wake with intention, or do you wake and scroll? Do you delay gratification, or do you reach for quick dopamine? Marcus Aurelius wrote, "At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I am rising to do the work of a human being." The Stoics understood this with piercing clarity. They were not obsessed with accumulating gold or land. They were obsessed with truth, with character, with reason, because they knew, a wise man will know what to do with wealth. A fool will lose it the moment he touches it. Seneca said, "You act like mortals in all that you fear, and like immortals in all that you desire." He wasn't condemning wealth. He was exposing the illusion of permanence, the idea that money is the end. But it's not the end. It's a tool. And if you don't know how to use it wisely, it will become your burden. So what does it mean to invest in wisdom? It means that every day you choose to grow, mentally, morally, spiritually, before you try to grow financially. You study, you question, you reflect, you learn, not just facts, not just trends, but principles. You read timeless books. You meditate on what matters. You seek mentors who challenge you, not flatter you. You observe your own behaviors and call them what they are, without excuses, because the greatest return on investment is not financial, it's philosophical. It's the ability to navigate any storm, because your mind is anchored in what cannot be shaken. Look at the world. People panic when the market dips. They run when things don't go as planned. They self-sabotage when delayed gratification is required. Why? Because they lack inner architecture. They've built income, not insight, speed, not stillness, achievement, not understanding. But the Stoic knows wisdom is wealth, because wisdom teaches you how to earn, how to save, how to walk away, how to stay, how to respond with logic instead of emotion, how to grow with intention instead of noise. Let me make this brutally simple. If you gave a fool $1 million, he would be broke in a year. If you gave a wise man the same amount, he could create a foundation that lasts generations. The difference isn't money, it's mindset, it's philosophy. So how do you cultivate this habit, this investment in wisdom? Start with time. Dedicate 30 minutes a day to studying something that deepens your thinking. Stoic texts, financial literacy, human behavior, psychology, biographies of those who've lived with clarity under pressure. But don't stop at reading. Apply. Wisdom is not stored in memory, it is born in motion. Ask questions like, what did I learn today that challenges my current behavior? Where am I being reactive instead of rational? How can I act with virtue, not just efficiency? Journaling is your mirror. Make it a daily habit. not as a diary, but as a discipline, a way to track your thoughts, to confront your contradictions, to watch your evolution in ink. And remember, knowledge is not the same as wisdom. Knowledge fills your head. Wisdom reshapes your life. Wisdom is humble. It doesn't rush to impress. It doesn't over-explain. It just shows up, calm, grounded, ready. This kind of internal wealth protects you far more than any emergency fund ever could. Because when the storm hits, the economy shifts, the job disappears, the world panics, it's your philosophy that decides whether you collapse or rise. So invest in it. Buy fewer shoes. Buy more books. Spend less on distractions. Spend more on learning. Guard your attention like currency. Spend it where the return is lifelong clarity, not momentary escape. Because here's what the world won't tell you. Wisdom never goes out of style. It never crashes. It never gets hacked. It doesn't inflate. And it pays dividends for generations. You are the fund. You are the investment. You are the asset. So treat your mind with the same care you treat your money. Sharpen it. Strengthen it. Respect it. And let it lead the rest. Because a man who is rich in wisdom can lose everything and still rebuild, can walk alone and still stand tall, can face the unknown and still remain free. Part 8. Keep your circle strong. Surround yourself with builders, not drainers. You cannot build wealth alone. You can try. You can isolate. You can hoard information. But eventually, the weight of the journey will reveal a truth that the Stoics understood long ago. The people around you either sharpen your edge or dull your blade. There is no neutrality in your environment. Every conversation, every relationship, every interaction is either making you stronger, clearer, more focused, or it's draining you, distracting you, and slowly pulling you away from your principles. Seneca said, "Associate with those who will make a better man of you. Welcome those whom you yourself can improve." The process is mutual, for men learn while they teach. He wasn't just talking about philosophy, he was talking about life and wealth. A man who conquers his morning does not just build routine, he builds character. And character, more than knowledge, will determine your financial future. The Stoic practices restraint not to punish himself, but to free himself. He eats when he is hungry, not when he is bored. He speaks when it is useful, not when it is reactive. He spends when it aligns with his principles, not when his ego feels neglected. And what about the distractions of today? Subscriptions, ads, algorithms, and legacy. Because who you surround yourself with is a direct reflection of what you tolerate. And what you tolerate shapes what you become. So the question is simple, but brutal. Are you walking among builders or drifters? Do your friends push you to be better or pressure you to stay small? Do they hold you accountable or enable your excuses? Do they talk about vision or gossip, consumption, and cheap validation? If your circle is filled with people who live paycheck to paycheck, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, it will be difficult to live with surplus, no matter how much money you earn. Because wealth is not just financial, it's energetic, it's environmental, it's contagious. And poverty, not just of money, but of ambition, clarity, and responsibility, is also contagious. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself constantly, "The things you think about determine the quality of your mind. Your soul takes on the color of your thoughts." Now consider this. Your thoughts are shaped by conversations, and conversations are shaped by the company you keep. So if you spend your time with people who avoid responsibility, who spend recklessly, who complain about life without taking action, don't be surprised if your vision fades, if your discipline weakens, if your goals begin to feel too much. That's not a coincidence. That's exposure. Now, the Stoic doesn't blame others. He takes full ownership. If his environment is weak, he strengthens it. If his circle is chaotic, he tightens it. If his relationships pull him off course, he releases them, quietly, without drama, without apology, because nothing threatens your future more than staying loyal to people who have no loyalty to growth. This doesn't mean you abandon everyone. It means you filter, you prioritize, you protect your energy with the same intensity that you protect your money. Ask yourself, who in my life challenges me to rise? Who makes excuses for mediocrity and calls it balance? Who lives with vision, discipline, intention? Who drains my clarity every time we speak? Then act accordingly. You don't need to make an announcement. You don't need a confrontation. Just step back, spend less time. Let the silence do what your words never could, and replace that space with people who build. Builders are rare. They don't always look successful, but they're committed to becoming better, to living on purpose, to sharpening your ideas, your habits, your mission. Surround yourself with those people, even if it's only one or two, even if you find them in books, in podcasts, in history. Seneca had Lucilius, Marcus had Rusticus, Epictetus had the memory of Socrates and the example of Zeno. Find your circle, or build it, but do not underestimate the influence of your tribe, because your habits are reflections of your standards, and your standards are a mirror of your circle. Want to build wealth? Surround yourself with people who save, who invest, who read, who rise early, who hold you accountable when you drift, who don't let you settle for less than your potential. Want to stay broke, mentally, emotionally, financially? Spend your time with people who fear change, who mock discipline, who treat every moment as entertainment. This is not about judgment, it's about alignment. And you cannot afford to be misaligned when your life's trajectory is on the line. So look at your circle, tighten it, sharpen it, elevate it, because the builders in your life will build you. Part 9. Make peace with simplicity. Stop trying to look rich. Start becoming rich. There is a sickness in the modern world. It looks like luxury, but it's actually lack. It looks like confidence, but it's actually fear. It looks like wealth, but it's nothing more than debt, pressure, and performance. It's the sickness of trying to look rich instead of becoming rich. Stoicism doesn't care what brand of shoes you wear. It doesn't care what you drive, where you eat, or whether strangers admire your lifestyle. It only asks one thing: are you in control of your life? Because control, not consumption, is the essence of wealth. Seneca warned us centuries ago, it is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor. And today, craving is everywhere. They are designed to break your focus, to train your mind to crave instead of create, but the disciplined mind sees through them. He says no, not out of rigidity, but out of reverence for his time, for his goals, for his future self. If you want wealth, start with this habit. Say no to the unnecessary, to excess, to impulse, to distraction. Track your spending, not because it's fashionable, but because it's philosophical. It is the fuel of marketing. It is the rhythm of social media. It is the whisper in your ear that says, you need that bag, you need that watch, you need that lifestyle to be respected. But respect earned by aesthetics is a lie, because the louder you signal wealth, the more likely it is that you don't have it. The truly rich, rich in time, rich in peace, rich in freedom, they don't need to prove it. They're too busy living it. And the Stoic, he finds dignity in simplicity. He doesn't need flash. He needs clarity. Let's be clear. There's nothing wrong with enjoying beautiful things. But when your self-worth is tied to external appearance, when your financial decisions are driven by how others will perceive you, you are not living. You are performing. Every time you buy something to impress, you're stealing from your future. Every time you upgrade to please the crowd, you downgrade your own independence. Every time you post a life that isn't aligned with your truth, you lose more of your soul. The Stoic doesn't just reject excess, he questions it. He asks, does this serve a real function? Am I buying this out of alignment or anxiety? Who am I trying to be seen as, and why? You'll find, if you're honest, that the desire to look rich often stems from feeling unseen, from trying to prove worth in a world that measures value in vanity. But you don't need to play that game. In fact, the more you resist it, the more wealth you retain. Not just in your account, but in your character. Simplicity is not scarcity, it is precision. It is the radical act of knowing what is enough, and not reaching beyond it to impress people who are too distracted to care. Marcus Aurelius lived in a palace, but he journaled like a monk. He was emperor of Rome, but he wore humility like a crown, because he knew true strength doesn't shout, it stands, and true wealth doesn't flaunt. It flows, silently, steadily, wisely. So what does it look like to live simply, powerfully? Drive the car that works, not the one that screams. Wear the clothes that serve, not the ones that sell. Eat for nourishment, not for clout. Post less, practice more. Spend money on skills, not status. Choose comfort in your finances over comfort in your image. The man who has peace in his accounts sleeps better than the man who has prestige on his feed. So simplify, quietly, elegantly, with no explanation, no apology. Let people wonder why you're not chasing the latest. Let them guess how you're always calm. Let them laugh at your restraint, because one day, while they're still chasing the next trend, you'll be free. You'll have options. You'll have assets. You'll have time. You'll have peace. And peace is the luxury the loudest people never seem to afford. So trade the noise for stillness. Trade the rush for rhythm. Trade the mask for mastery. Stop trying to look rich. Start becoming rich. And never forget, simplicity is the flex. Part 10. Define enough. The wealthiest man is the one who knows when to stop. What if I told you that the single greatest financial skill is not how to earn more, not how to invest smarter, not even how to save faster, but how to define enough? Because without a clear definition of enough, no amount of money will ever satisfy you. Without it, you're a slave to endless pursuit. Without it, success will feel like failure. Without it, you'll climb every mountain and never feel like you've arrived. The Stoics called this sickness pleonexia, the endless craving for more. Not more because it's useful, but more because we fear emptiness. We confuse accumulation with meaning, growth with greed, ambition with obsession, and this is the tragedy of our time. We don't know where the finish line is, so we keep running. We run until we collapse. We run past our children, our health, our joy. We chase numbers on a screen, approval from people we don't respect, trophies we can't even enjoy. And for what? To feel secure? You'll never feel secure if you don't define what secure means. To feel proud? You'll never feel proud if your worth depends on outperforming everyone else. To feel free? You'll never be free if you don't know when to stop running. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking, not in your salary, not in your portfolio, not in your possessions, but in your philosophy, because the man who defines enough becomes invincible. He knows when to pause. He knows what to pursue and what to ignore. He no longer chases every opportunity. He no longer needs to prove anything. He is not easily shaken by loss, because he is not addicted to gain. He walks in a kind of quiet confidence that no market crash, no social pressure, no comment section can touch. The Stoic believes that every coin spent is a statement. I value this more than what I could build with it. So what are you building? A wardrobe of indulgence or a life of freedom? This is the heart of Stoic wealth. Freedom, not accumulation, not extravagance. Freedom from debt, freedom from fear, freedom from being owned by what you think you own. And this freedom comes from discipline. Discipline to live beneath your means. Discipline to invest rather than impress. Defining enough is not weakness. It's sovereignty. It's the moment you take back control from a culture addicted to more. So what does it mean? Practically, it means deciding how much money is enough for your needs, how much is enough to provide for your family without poisoning yourself with stress, how much time is enough for work, and when does it begin to steal from life? How many possessions do you need before ownership becomes burden? How much recognition is necessary before you realize you don't need it? Most people never ask these questions. They live in default mode. They follow the cultural script. More, bigger, faster, always. But the Stoic rewrites the script. He chooses contentment, not as resignation, but as revolution. Because once you define enough, you gain something no one else can give you. Clarity. And with clarity comes freedom. You spend with intention. You invest with peace. You say no without guilt. You walk away from opportunities that don't serve your soul, even if they're profitable. You value your time as much as your money. You value your mind as much as your brand. You stop trading your presence for progress. Defining enough doesn't mean you stop growing. It means you stop growing blindly. It means you grow with direction, not desperation. It doesn't mean you lose your edge. It means you sharpen it on your own terms. You no longer run for the sake of running. You run when it matters. You rest when it's time. You move with purpose. And maybe, just maybe, you begin to understand the deepest Stoic truth of all. The richest man is not the one with the most. He is the one who needs the least. So pause today. Look at your life. Look at your bank account. Look at your goals. And ask, what is enough for me? What am I chasing out of fear, not freedom? If I stopped today, what would I regret never defining? Then write it down, live by it, and protect it. Because once you know you're enough, you are free from the trap. You are no longer pulled by comparison. You are no longer deceived by the false gods of consumption. You are grounded, focused, peaceful, unmoved. That's what wealth really is. Not a number, a mindset, a decision, a declaration. This is enough, and I am free. Wealth isn't built in a weekend. It's not a breakthrough. It's not a moment of luck or a viral success. It's built in silence, in choices no one sees, in saying no when it would be easier to say yes, in tracking when others are ignoring, in waiting while the world rushes. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need a massive income. You don't need to impress anyone. What you need is clarity, discipline, consistency, a philosophy strong enough to resist the pressure of modern noise, and a set of habits powerful enough to carry you when motivation disappears. The Stoics weren't just philosophers. They were builders of lives, of empires, of legacies, and now so are you. If you build with these 10 habits, you won't just make money. You'll make meaning. You'll make space. You'll make a life that's yours, not one that was sold to you by marketing. So simplify, track, say no, invest in wisdom, protect your time, and define what enough means before someone else defines it for you. Because the real goal isn't to look rich, it's to live free. If these 10 habits spoke to you, if something inside you whispered, it's time, then don't just watch. Act. Start with one habit. Apply it. Live it. Let it challenge you. Let it change you. Because wealth doesn't respond to thoughts. It responds to action. Quiet, consistent, unapologetic action. If this video gave you clarity, subscribe now and join a community of disciplined minds who are done chasing noise and ready to build real, lasting freedom. Like the video to anchor the message. Share it with someone who needs to hear this today. Someone stuck in the cycle of trying to look successful instead of becoming it. And in the comments, tell me, which of these 10 Stoic habits will you start practicing today? This isn't about getting rich fast. It's about getting strong forever. And it starts now. Let's build, silently, relentlessly, with purpose.